Tonight, that state autopsy report now in the hands of investigators. The results have not been made public.
Justice for our black children.
Justice for our black children.
Justice for our black children.
My son was to graduate in May. He was unable to graduate because the two boys murdered my son. They said my son jumped off a bridge, and I know that's not the truth. He was found in water. And not only that, my son was on the swim team. He was very comfortable with swimming in the pool, swimming in lakes. The autopsy report shows my son had an unobstructed airway. So my son did not drown.
The disrespect that's been coming toward my wife and my family, for any parent, no matter what race you are, they need time to grieve. A parent can't grieve when you have people attacking them, attacking their jobs, attacking their character.
When the physician came out and pronounced my grandson, and she stated self-inflicted, accidental, I told her, you're a lie, and there is no truth in it. I explained to her immediately. I said, how do you have this evidence for you to know this? She said, because they said. I said, they said? She said, yes.
We're going to get justice for Nolan Wells. We're going to get justice for Daniel Erving. And we're going to get justice for Tyler Smith. Me and everybody on my legal team stand for the truth, no matter who it implicates or who it exonerates. We stand for justice, no matter who it convicts or who it acquits. They're attacking me, they're attacking Reverend Al, they're attacking the parents of Nolan Wells. We don't care about those distractions. We ain't no ways tired. We are completely focused, completely laser focused on getting to the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
The Mississippi State Medical Examiner has finished the autopsy on Nolan Wells. 3 weeks of waiting, and now it exists as a completed document. Except it isn't headed to the Wells family. It's headed to a grand jury, still sealed, still unseen by the mother who has been asking the same question since the 4th of July. This week, 800 miles away in Nashville, attorney Ben Crump stood on a stage with 3 photographs propped beside him. Nolan Wells, Daniel Erving, and a name this channel hasn't covered until now, Tyler Smith. 3 18-year-old black men, 3 deaths inside 3 months. 3 families standing together saying one sentence in unison. Nobody has told us the truth. Tyler Smith's family says police called his death a self-inflicted accident. But the weapon recovered at the scene reportedly doesn't match the shell casing found there. Daniel Erving's case has already produced a tampering charge, and the reward in Nolan's case just climbed past $170,000 after the father of one of Nolan's own friends added to it, because his son, he says, has been buried in death threats simply for being connected to the story. 3 different states, 3 different police departments, 3 different sets of circumstances, and 3 families who traveled across the country to stand next to each other and say it plainly. We still don't know what happened to our son. This is the update on all 3. Subscribe if you're new here. Let's get into it. Start with what's new. NBC News has confirmed the Mississippi State Medical Examiner's report on Nolan Wells is done. Completed. Finished. That report now moves into the next phase, presentation to a grand jury, which will decide whether anyone is criminally charged in his death. But completed does not mean released. The findings stay sealed from the public and from Nolan's own parents until the grand jury process plays out. District Attorney Angel Myers-McClarty has framed the delay as necessary caution, protecting the process rather than stonewalling the family. Whether that legal logic offers any comfort to a mother closing in on a month without an answer is a separate question entirely. Here's what makes this moment unusual. There are now 2 completed autopsies sitting in 2 separate files, and neither is public. The independent exam the family commissioned reached its own conclusion weeks ago, Cause and manner of death undetermined, with key throat structures too compromised to examine. Now the state's version exists too, finished, but held back for its own legal reasons. Two pathologists, two separate processes, two competed conclusions, both withheld. One to preserve grand jury integrity, one because the family's legal team is choosing what to release and when. That's two competing versions of the same truth, both finished, both waiting for their moment. And the timing isn't nothing. This autopsy became public knowledge in the exact same week Crump chose to link Nolan's case publicly to two others in Nashville. Strategic, or simply how the calendar fell? Either way, it put more national eyes on this case than almost any point since the search itself. If the state's findings end up matching the independent autopsy, that agreement becomes hard evidence in itself. Two pathologists, no coordination, same conclusion. If they diverge, that gap becomes its own story. Which exam had better access to evidence, which was rushed, and which one the grand jury leans on when it decides whether charges are warranted at all. What do you think happens if they don't match? Drop your prediction below. Thursday, the National Urban League's annual conference. Crump stood with three families who had never met in life, now bound by how alike their sons' deaths have become. He didn't soften the framing. We are going to get to the answers on what happened to Nolan Wells, Daniel Erving, and Tyler Smith. Three 18-year-old black boys. We stand for the truth, no matter who it implicates or who it exonerates. National Urban League President Mark Morial stood beside the families too, telling the room that when families face a justice system that won't respond, the community has to stand with them. Three mothers and family members who flew or drove in specifically to be seen, shoulder to shoulder. Not a claim of some coordinated plot. Three separate tragedies, three separate states, three separate law enforcement agencies, and one attorney arguing publicly that the pattern itself deserves scrutiny, whatever each case eventually turns out to be. And Crump was blunt about where things stand. No one, in any of the three cases, has been held accountable. Not in the sense of a homicide charge. Compare that single fact to everything surrounding these cases. Subpoenas, independent autopsies, a reward pool now over $200,000 combined, national coverage, even a state attorney general warning against threatening investigators. A massive amount of motion. Still nobody charged with causing any of these deaths. Think too about what it actually took to get these three families in one room. Mississippi, Texas, Kentucky, coordinating travel, agreeing to share a stage in the spotlight with strangers who happen to be living the same nightmare. That's not casual. That's people who've decided after months of fighting alone that there's more strength standing together than apart. Which of these three cases do you think reaches a resolution first? Tell us in the comments. We're covering all three below.
We're gonna get justice for Nolan Wells. We're gonna get justice for Daniel Erving. And we're gonna get justice for Tyler Smith. Me and everybody on my legal team stand for the truth, no matter who it implicates or who it exonerates. We stand for justice, no matter who it convicts or who it acquits. They're attacking me, they're attacking Reverend Al, they're attacking the parents of Nolan Wells. We don't care about those distractions. We ain't no ways tired. We are completely focused, completely laser focused on getting to the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
New to this channel tonight, Tyler Smith, 18, a recent graduate of Lafayette High School in Lexington, Kentucky. On July 4th, the same holiday Nolan disappeared 800 miles away. Smith died of a gunshot wound while out with friends. Lexington police called it accidental, self-inflicted. His family disputes that, and they point to something concrete. According to a police citation, the firearm recovered at the scene doesn't match the shell casing found there. Not a hunch, a physical discrepancy between the weapon police say caused the wound and the evidence collected from where it happened. Police have charged 20-year-old Bryce Chestnut with tampering with physical evidence, the same charge already filed in Daniel Erving's case in Texas. Smith's family says that charge alone doesn't come close to real accountability. His grandmother, Macy Anderson, described him in terms that had nothing to do with the case file. Tyler is that warm piece of cake straight out of the oven, the depth of a baby's laughter. And then she was specific about what she's actually asking for. Not vengeance, just competence. I want transparency. I want you to simply do the job you are paid to do. She described being told there was no need to test anyone's hands for gunshot residue. Being told the body would move to the state medical examiner the following Monday, then watching it happen within 2 hours instead. 17 days of her own family investigating, because in her words, the department gave them nothing. She said she was treated like an inconvenience for asking the same questions any investigator should have asked first. Sit with how she chose to describe her grandson, not through the language of a courtroom, but through warmth, through comfort, through the sound of a baby laughing. That's someone trying to make sure the world understands Tyler was a person worth grieving, not just a name in a disputed report. A shell casing isn't a matter of interpretation. It either matches the weapon or it doesn't. If that detail holds up, it becomes one of the most concrete, testable contradictions in any of these three cases. If you want every update on all three of these cases as they land, subscribe now. We'll be following Nolan, Daniel, and Tyler together going forward. Of the three, Daniel Erving's case has moved furthest through the legal system, and Crump used the Nashville stage to make sure nobody forgot where it stands. Erving, 18, went to Lake Ray Hubbard near Rowlett, Texas, with 2 friends on April 13th and never came home. Reporting says he and his friends jumped from a bridge into the water. Erving went under and didn't resurface. The friends with him didn't call for help right away. According to an arrest affidavit, they got rid of his belongings and deleted messages between themselves and Daniel before ever reporting what happened. Dallas County's medical examiner ruled it an accidental drowning. 19-year-old Lucas Roper and a juvenile co-defendant faced tampering charges, not homicide. Daniel's mother, Tamika Erving, calls that partial justice at best. I reported my son missing. They said my son jumped off a bridge, and I know that's not the truth. He was on the swim team. He was comfortable in water. The autopsy report shows my son had an unobstructed airway. My son did not drown. She's also raised a separate, damning detail, that it took law enforcement more than 35 hours to enter Daniel into the state missing persons system, and that his information was never entered into the National Crime Information Center at all, despite a 2-hour requirement for missing minors. I want to know why the people who are there to protect and serve failed to do their jobs from the very start. Her fight has looked like sustained pressure, court appearances, public statements, pushing Dallas County prosecutors to reconsider the scope of the charges already filed. That kind of pressure takes months or years to move anything, and Daniel's family has been at it since April, well before the other 2 families entered this fight. Here's what Daniel's case shows that the other 2 don't have yet: a completed legal outcome. Cause of death stays accidental, while narrower charges get filed against the people present, based on what they did after the death, not what caused it. Whether Nolan's case or Tyler's case ends up following that same shape is still an open question, but if they do, it starts to look less like 3 unrelated outcomes and more like a pattern in how these cases tend to get classified. Back in Mississippi, the financial pressure on Nolan's case just grew again from an unexpected direction. Reverend Al Sharpton and Tyler Perry had each already pledged $50,000 for information leading to an arrest. NFL veteran Terrell Owens added $25,000 more after the funeral. This week, Dr. Benjamin Hudson, father of Warren Hudson, one of the friends who was on Horn Island with Nolan that day, matched Sharpton's pledge himself, pushing the total to $175,000. Hudson said plainly why. He wants justice for the Wells family, and he wants the speculation swirling around the case, much of it aimed directly at his own son, to stop. He says his family has received thousands of death threats in the past 3 weeks alone, despite never being charged with anything and cooperating with investigators from day one. Think about what that actually means. A father whose son is already under public suspicion is choosing to fund the search for answers rather than go quiet and wait it out. That's not the move of someone protecting a secret. If Hudson believed his son had something to hide, adding tens of thousands of dollars to accelerate the investigation would be an enormous risk. Instead, it reads like a bet. a bet that a faster, more thorough investigation clears his son rather than confirms suspicion against him. What do you think a reward of this size actually changes at this stage? Tell us in the comments. There's another sign of how far this has spread online. Reporting this week says a New Orleans-based rapper and social media personality received a cease and desist letter tied to claims he'd made about Nolan's death. Attorney Russell Latino, a Mississippi lawyer who also runs a nonprofit news outlet, now representing the family, is reportedly behind the pushback against creators repeating unverified claims to huge audiences with no connection to actual case evidence. When a family's legal team starts sending formal legal notices to influencers, it signals real concern that specific false claims are causing tangible harm to the investigation, to the people connected to it, or both. This is now the second known instance of formal legal action tied to public speculation about this case, following earlier subpoenas and legal notices sent to friends, family, and local officials. It's worth being exact about what connecting these three cases actually establishes, because the distinction matters. It doesn't prove a coordinated conspiracy across three unrelated deaths. It doesn't prove race decided how any single case was investigated. What the undisputed facts do show is a pattern worth taking seriously. 3 18-year-old black men dead within 3 months of each other, each case involving companions who didn't immediately report what happened, and in each case, an official ruling families believe arrived faster and with less scrutiny than it deserved. Crump has been careful across all three not to declare anyone guilty of anything beyond what's already been charged. What he's argued consistently is that the process, how quickly an accident gets ruled, how much access families get to evidence, how hard initial accounts get challenged, deserves the same rigor here that it would in any case drawing this much attention. That framing gives him room to represent all three families without needing every case to resolve the same way. He isn't betting his credibility on identical outcomes. He's betting on a narrower claim that each of these three investigations deserves a level of thoroughness none of them have fully received yet. And there's a fair counter-argument here too, one that doesn't require dismissing any family's grief. Critics say every death deserves scrutiny based on its own evidence alone, and that grouping unrelated tragedies by demographic similarity risks flattening real differences between them. That's a legitimate concern. Nolan drowned near a barrier island. Daniel drowned in a lake after jumping from a bridge. Tyler died of a gunshot wound at a gathering. 3 different circumstances, 3 different states, 3 different sets of investigators. Whether the thread connecting them is a genuine structural pattern or an attorney building a bigger platform out of 3 separate stories, is a question reasonable people can disagree on without either side being dishonest. Nolan Wells was 18. Daniel Erving was 18. Tyler Smith was 18. 3 young men who went out to spend time with friends and never made it home the way everyone around them expected. As it stands, no one has been charged with homicide in any of these 3 cases. Nolan's completed autopsy sits sealed, waiting on a grand jury. Daniel's death is ruled an accident, with tampering charges against 2 people who were with him. Tyler's death is ruled accidental and self-inflicted, disputed by his family, with a tampering charge already filed. 3 separate legal processes, 3 separate timelines. What connects them isn't a shared crime. It's 3 families who refuse to accept silence as an answer, standing together on a stage in Nashville, because none of them could get real answers standing alone. Rest easy, Nolan. Rest easy, Daniel. Rest easy, Tyler. We'll keep following all 3 of your stories until there's real justice. Somewhere right now, a sealed autopsy is waiting for a grand jury that hasn't convened. Somewhere right now, 2 people connected to Daniel's death are moving through a process his mother calls only partial justice. And somewhere right now, a grandmother in Kentucky is holding on to one mismatched shell casing, hoping it's enough to force a real investigation into how her grandson actually died. If this introduced you to a case you hadn't heard of yet, tell us in the comments, and be honest. Which of these 3 families do you think gets real answers first?